Awakening the Third Eye. Chapter number 7. Seeing 2. The use of darkness. In A Separate Reality, Don Juan teaches Carlos Castaneda how to make use of darkness. When the latter asks what one can use it for, Don Juan answers that the darkness of the day is the best time to see. We have been conditioned to rush to the light switch or a torch every time we have to find our way in the dark. In many cases, you can manage very well without a light. Pretend you are a cat. Switch on to cat mode. Rely on your instinct. And, of course, be very aware in the eye. All sorts of objects have a glow of energy around them at night, and some are actually quite easy to see. It is typically one of those perceptions that most people miss, simply because they never think of trying, and not because it is difficult or advanced. For instance, if you walk on a dirt path in the countryside at night, you will often discover that the path glows when you look at it from your third eye. It is a valuable exercise to try finding your way without artificial light. You can also rediscover your flat at night or in the darkness of the day. Explore. Use more candles and oil lamps, less electricity whenever possible. Use candles or oil lamps instead of electric lights. In the natural light of candles, you will have much easier access to the vision of auras. There are some simple reasons why electric lights are not conducive to the opening of perception. The light coming from a light bulb appears to us as continuous. But in reality, that is not the case. Electric lights work with a 50 Hz alternating current. This means the light turns on and off many times per second. The process is quick enough to cheat your conscious mind, but subconsciously this frequency is registered. It has an action on your brain. Imagine the electric light was turned on and off every half second so that you could see the light pulsate. What would the result be? Quite painful. You would have to close your eyes, or at least you would have to make a mental formation, like a screen, to protect yourself. This means you would have to close off to a certain degree. When you start using your eye, you realize that a similar process takes place, unconsciously, with the electric light going on and off many times per second. It is hard on the brain. Deep inside, something has to close off in order to protect yourself. Of course, the general direction of perception is one of opening. We have already discussed how when trying to see, one of the main obstacles is this tendency of the mind to retract. You are starting to see an aura, for instance, and suddenly your mind gets surprised, or startled, or very interested instantaneously. This reaction of the mind creates a closing off. In a fraction of a second your perception is lost, and you have to start reopening again. Electric light creates a similar process of closing at a deep unconscious level. But let it be very clear that I am not advocating getting rid of all the electric lights in your house. For instance, when reading or writing, use electric light, of course. Insufficient light would tire your eyes, which will not help you become any more clairvoyant. The clairvision techniques have been designed for those who are in the world, and presently you can't be in the world without using electricity, computers and so on. The point I want to make is that when you practice eye contact or other techniques of seeing, it is far better to use candles. Apart from that, there are many circumstances such as eating or talking with a friend when we use electric lights out of habit and not because we really need them. So we could take advantage of those occasions to give our brain a break and to practice the techniques of vision. This is one of the secrets of success in spiritual practice. Use more and more of your daily activities to put the processes into practice. Integrate your work of opening with the simplest actions. Yet in the long run it should become a concern that electric light is stressful. It would be a blessing for humankind if somebody could invent a form of artificial light that was softer on our unconscious perception. In quest of the ultimate wall rendering, when trying to see an aura, you will get much better results if the wall behind the object or the person is blank and white or painted in a very light hue. If seeing is really one of your essential preoccupations in life, you should consider redecorating the walls of the rooms in which you spend most of your time. Certain varieties of white paint and wall renderings have a magic effect. Whenever someone stands in front of them, you automatically start seeing halos of light. The white shoal. When practicing the techniques of eye contact regularly with the same friends, it can be a good idea to wear a white shawl that covers your clothes. No need to cover your head, just wear it on your shoulders. It makes it significantly easier to see auras, and it attracts all sorts of good vibrations. On the contrary, black or dark clothes make the task of seeing more arduous. Wear the white shawl when practicing alone too, in front of the mirror. For the shawl you can use cotton, silk or linen, but no synthetic fibers. Wear it whenever you meditate, and it will concentrate the energy of your meditation. The shawl will slowly be charged with a protective power that will become more and more tangible. Each time you put it on, your energy will be activated and you will feel a certain well-being. Do not let anybody else use your shawl, or else all your work may be lost in a few minutes. I suggest a shawl because it is extremely simple to make. There is nothing to sew, you just need a pair of scissors. A size of 1 meter by 2 or 2.5 is usually suitable. But a dress could also be designed. Monks' robes were originally designed to play a role in energy concentration and protection, even though this knowledge came to be lost. Maybe it's time for a new generation of garments for energy to be designed. Before resuming the techniques of vision, I would suggest that you reread the advice given in Chapter 1. The basic technique for seeing an aura. The following procedure is one of the most direct ways to see an aura, or to get in touch with somebody's guides. You can sit in front of each other at the regular eye contact distance of about 90 centimeters, or allow a bit more space between the two of you, as in a normal conversation situation. Even better, start in an eye contact position, and then repeat the practice in a more relaxed and casual position, comparing your results. Close your eyes for 1 or 2 minutes, breathing with the throat friction. Operate a reconnection with the space in the eye by doing a short third eye meditation. Then drop the friction and open your eyes. The technique consists of gazing 1 or 2 inches above the head of the person whose aura you want to read, and implementing the triple vision process. Number 1. Become aware in the eye and motionless. Blink as little as possible. Number 2. Do not look at any details of the image. Become aware of the fact of seeing or seeingness. If seeingness remains a mystery, just feel the image instead of looking at it. Number 3. Feel the other person from your heart in the middle of the chest. Remain totally still, absorbed in this triple process. After a few minutes, start the throat friction. Connect the friction with the image. When you finish, rub your hands. Put the palms against your eyes. Let the warmth reach inside and heal your eyes. Tips. You will be amazed how the perception of halos is suddenly enhanced as soon as you connect it with the throat friction. It is a beautiful demonstration of the amplifying effect generated by this friction. To do an aura reading, the trick is to tune into the spiritual beings above the person's head and let them do the reading for you. Tune into their presence and let them monitor your vision. Where exactly should you look while doing eye contact? Nowhere, since to see, the secret lies in not looking. But still the question arises, where to place your gaze, especially at the beginning of the practice before your perception shifts into the space. You can either Gaze between the eyebrows of your partner. Gaze at one of his or her eyes. Try to gaze in front of you without touching any physical part of your partner with your eyes. Experiment with these different options, going from one to another. After some time, the physical image disappears, so it doesn't really matter which one you choose. When focusing on the eyes of the person in front of you, it sometimes happens that everything becomes blurry, but the eyes remain clear, or the face changes, but the eyes remain the same. Whatever possibility you explore, it is preferable for both people to practice the same way at the same time. Don't forget that focusing between the eyebrows never means making your eyeballs converge, as if trying to look in that area. It only means that you should remain aware of your third eye. Channel release from time to time. While working on these techniques of clairvoyance, it is valuable to implement a few channel releases from time to time. This will stimulate your whole etheric body, thereby giving a boost to the etheric layer of your third eye. In particular, but not only, if your progress seems blocked, don't hesitate to have recourse to a few channel releases. Working on auras. Here are a few suggestions to work at developing your perception of auras. Start with a reconnection. Close your eyes, breathe with the throat friction and build up the vibration between the eyebrows. Then tune into the light and become aware of the dark purple space for 1 or 2 minutes. Then open your eyes and start the triple vision process. Number 1, motionless focus in the eye. Number 2, seeingness. Number 3, the feeling from the heart. The idea is to remain very quiet inside, absorbed in this triple process, and to ask the friend in front of you to say or think of different things, to see if any modification of his or her aura can be perceived as a consequence. You can place your gaze 1 inch above his or her head, or between his or her eyebrows, as you prefer. Of course, be careful not to look too much, otherwise you won't see anything. Ask your friend to repeat no, no, no for 1 minute or so. It should be a no with intention, a no that really means no. During this time, feel the quality of the light around him or her. Then ask the friend to repeat yes, yes, yes with intention for 1 minute. Feel the light and compare the quality of energy. Repeat once or twice with no, and then with yes. Repeat the same procedure, but this time the friend should be aware both in the eye and around the navel while saying no. Ask your friend while saying yes. To be fully aware in the heart, for a minute or so, to think of death for 1 minute, to think of a happy thing that could happen in his or her life, to become aware of a sad emotion, to think of something that usually creates irritation or anger. Ask your friend to become serene again. Don't forget to do a bit of palming, applying your palms to your closed eyes at the end of each session, or each time you take a short break with your eyes closed. Tips. You can repeat the same exercise while asking your friend to think of a loved one, someone he or she dislikes, someone who is dead. Various other possibilities will come to your mind as you explore the practices. Once you have digested the chapter on ley lines, you can also watch the aura of your friend while he or she is sitting on a noxious crossing of earth lines, knowingly on a noxious crossing of earth lines, unknowingly on an energy well. If you find a real well, as soon as the person stands on it, the action on the aura is immediate and quite remarkable. Aura testing. It is also interesting to ask your friend to hold different objects and substances and to watch the modification of the aura accordingly. Ask the friend to tune into the object. You can hold the object in front of the heart and then in front of other parts of the body and see if you notice any difference in the aura. Here are a few suggestions. A copper vessel, a big iron tool, but not one that you hold by a wooden handle. The tip of a thermometer, which contains the metal mercury, An aluminium saucepan, different cans of food, packets of frozen foods, plates with different foods, a variety of herbs, drugs, medicines, homeopathic remedies. Basically, try anything, ordinary and extraordinary. Tips. The technique known as muscle testing is based on the idea that the force of a muscle is stronger when you think of something true or when you hold a substance that is good for you. On the contrary, the muscular force is supposed to drop if you are holding the wrong remedy or if you think of something that is untrue or not beneficial to your health. For instance, patients are asked to hold different bottles with their left hand in front of their heart and to stretch their right arm horizontally. The practitioner pushes the hand down to test the strength of the deltoid shoulder muscle. The technique has its limits, and I don't think it is reasonable to try to make it a universal method of knowledge, as some seem to be doing. Yet it is a surprising fact that the resistance of the muscle is sometimes significantly stronger or weaker, depending on what the person holds or thinks of. As soon as you begin perceiving auras, you will discover that clear-cut differences can be sensed in a person's energy when they think about different things or while they hold different substances. To perceive this, you don't even need to see auras, just feeling them is enough. Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Ayurveda, or traditional Indian medicine, is based on recognizing the interplay of three principles in the body. Vata, or wind, all that moves in the body; Pitta, or fire, heat principle; Kapha, or water and earth principle, force of inertia. In Ayurveda, diagnosis rests on discerning which of these three principles, called the three dashas, predominate in a patient. Patients are classified accordingly as Vata, or Pitta, or Kapha, or Vata-Pitta, if the two dashas are overactive, Vata more than Pitta, or Pitta-Vata, or Kapha-Vata, and so on. The Ayurvedic method of reaching this diagnosis is to take the pulse. I was once working with an Ayurvedic physician in Calcutta, and we had designed a procedure. It was a game, really, in which he would take the patient's pulse, and I would look at their aura. Before he gave his diagnosis, I would write mine on a piece of paper. Then we would compare. This physician was quite famous, seeing up to 100 patients a day, which is not so uncommon in India. This proved to be a respectable sample to make up our minds on how often we agreed. And we used to come up with the same diagnosis in more than 90% of cases. Now don't think you need to reach an advanced stage to do that yourself. You hardly need to be able to see auras just to get a sense of them. Sit in a cafe in a busy street, go into the triple process of vision and look at people passing by. Try to determine if they are Vata or Pitta, etc. Preferably get a friend to do the same with you so you can compare your findings. You will be surprised how often you agree. Transverbal communication. Sit in front of a friend and prepare for eye contact. Plug your ears and implement the triple process of vision. Then your friend says 5 sentences about himself. Each sentence is repeated 3 times. Each time the friend starts with a new sentence, he indicates the corresponding number with his fingers. Sentence 1, sentence 2. One of the sentences is false. Your task is to find which of the sentences is the false one, with only the aura as a reference. Repeat the exercise, this time without plugging your ears. To discern which statement is false, try to rely only on the aura and not on what you hear. Tips. An enlightening conclusion is that you will sometimes get more success by not listening at all and just looking at the aura rather than by analyzing the content of the messages. Don't hesitate to cheat and give more than one false statement to add to the sport. More about seeingness. Let us take a few examples to understand more about seeingness. Western esotericists such as Rudolf Steiner and Max Heindel, have described how in the distant past human beings had a very different way of perceiving warmth. A kind of baggy organ was on top of their heads. Nowadays this area corresponds to the fontanelle, a soft membrane between the two parietal bones on top of infants' heads. If we go back a long time through the archives of the memory of nature, we find that the earth was full of volcanoes and areas with hot gases and plasma. Human beings had to have some sense of direction to avoid being roasted alive. The baggy object on top of their heads fulfilled this function. It was the very primitive organ of warmth. In terms of evolution, what has happened? The baggy part was reintegrated inside the head and slowly became our present pineal gland. And now our sense of warmth is no longer localized in a particular organ, but distributed all over the body. Thus we can observe how a sensorial function develops over a long period of time. It first depends on one organ and is restricted to it, and then it slowly spreads to the whole body. We now do not feel warmth through any localized organ, but through our whole body. Steiner foresaw that our present senses will all follow a similar evolution process. So there will be a time when human beings can smell, see, hear, taste with their whole body, and not only through a particular organ. It is as if the localized organ is there to teach us about one particular sense, and when the lesson is complete, we no longer need the organ. As the sense of warmth is much more ancient, and therefore more integrated into our being, it is easier for us to recognize what warmth is, independently of any object. We can grasp the pure quality of warmth. Let us develop this as an analogy to understand more about seeingness. In the beginning it may be difficult to get a sense of seeingness, meaning the fact of seeing, independently of any image in particular. We understand what it is to see a tree, to see a light, or even to see an aura, but the naked seeingness may not be so obvious. Roughly speaking, the feeling of warmth is to heat what seeingness is to the perception of images. We don't have to refer to concepts such as hot as a fire, or hot as the sun or hot as the stove, and try to understand what is common to them. We can just go to the essence and recognize warmth, independently of any source of heat. It is a similar quality that has to be developed with vision in order to discern the seeingness. In other words, for perception to take place, three elements are needed. 1. A person who perceives. 2. An object to be perceived. 3. The process of perception. This applies not only to seeing auras, but to any physical perception such as hearing, smell. At this point in time, in the daily life of most human beings, the first and third elements have been lost, meaning the consciousness of the perceiver and of the process of perception. When seeing a tree, for instance, there is a mental recognition of the tree, but there is no awareness of who sees the tree, nor of the process through which the tree is perceived. An assimilation takes place with the object of perception. To become aware of seeingness means to become aware of 3. The process of perception. Our real purpose in this work is to find the self. We are not using techniques just to reach perception. We are using perception to reach the self. If you have 2 oranges and a cherry in a basket, the cherry can easily be hidden by the oranges. But if you take the 2 oranges out of the basket, the cherry becomes conspicuous. One orange is the object of perception, the other is the process of perception, and the cherry is the self-awareness of the perceiver. When you separate the seeingness from the object of perception, you achieve a stage of discernment which is similar to removing the 2 oranges from the basket. That is why you may have such big flashes of inner awakening when you become aware of the seeingness, sudden inner explosions in which the self is revealed. As you keep on practicing our triple process of vision, your seeingness will gradually develop. In the beginning it seems faint. But as you exercise it, it turns into a more and more tangible quality, becoming as clear and obvious as the perception of warmth. One could also compare the seeingness to a muscle that has not been used for a long time. Reactivating the muscle is likely to be slow in the beginning, you hardly feel it, you don't even know when it is contracting or not, and its contraction is quite weak. Once you have done the work, activating your seeingness becomes as clear and tangible as contracting your biceps. Actually, this part of the process of inner alchemy is akin to bodybuilding, not physical, but subtle bodybuilding. Now, there is a paradox. When you want to become aware of seeingness, what do? You make sure that you are not looking at anything in particular, that the content of the image does not matter to you. In other words, you take one of the two oranges out of the basket. You get rid of the object of perception. And then the second orange, seeingness, the process of perception, becomes conspicuous. But once your seeingness has evolved, you operate in a different way. You tune into an object or a person, you switch on your seeingness, and automatically you see. It does not matter at all whether the object of perception is just in front of you, or on the other side of the planet, or even on the other side of the galaxy. You see. And often something uncanny happens. You may well decide to close your eyes in order to see something just in front of you better. Then the following question arises: how can you be completely disinterested in the object if you use the seeingness as a means of seeing the object? The key to this paradox is, once you have reached that stage, you are not looking at the object with your mind anymore. The mind has become silent, and you are seeing from a much deeper and truer layer of yourself. A basic prerequisite for higher perception lies in the silence of the layer of ordinary mental consciousness. That is why in the beginning the advice is, do not look at the object, do not get too interested in it. Otherwise your mind will be activated, since you have been conditioned for so long to operate from only the mind. As soon as you are interested in something, your mind automatically tries to grasp it. Therefore it is better not to think of the object at all, in order to allow the process of vision to unfold. Often in the beginning, you will have an interesting experience. You will start seeing an aura or a different face, or a spiritual being. Then suddenly you realize that you are seeing something, and you instantaneously lose the perception. Why? Because your mind has reacted. You have suddenly become interested, frightened, or whatever. In other words, a grasping of the mind has taken place. You are suddenly looking from the mind again. And it's quite logical that you should lose the perception, since ordinary mental consciousness is completely blind by nature. When the perception process is engaged, it will go on, as long as you do not react, and will stop with the first grasping of the mind. Your perception always has the limits of your capacity not to react. Intermezzo, which eye are you? Some people argue that one of your two eyes corresponds to your deeper and true self, while the other is the mirror of your surface personality. As our philosophy is never to believe anything but to try to perceive for ourselves, let us not say which eye is supposed to be which. The following exercise is designed to let you find out if there are any differences in what you can perceive from each eye. Sit in front of each other and get ready for eye contact. Remember that your back should be straight, and that if you cannot touch the other's nose with your palm, you know you are too far away. This exercise can also be conducted by yourself, using a mirror. Practice a short reconnection in the eye, with your eyes closed, as explained in section 5.3. Open your eyes and start gazing at each other's right eye. Your focus is on your friend's right eye, and your friend is focusing on your right eye. To avoid any confusion, I recommend that you both raise your right hand at the beginning of the practice, to be sure that you are both gazing at the right eye. Then start practicing the triple vision process with the motionless focus between the eyebrows, the awareness of seeingness, and the feeling from the heart. Continue the practice for about 5 minutes. Then close the eyes and take a short break, warming your eyes with the palms of your hands as described earlier. Then open your eyes and show each other your left hand to avoid any confusion. Start gazing at each other's left eye and repeat the practice for a few minutes. Close your eyes and cover them with your palms, warming up your heart. Exchange impressions with your friend. After having tested this exercise with hundreds of people, I do not believe a word of the assumption that one of your eyes mirrors your higher self and the other one the lower self. By the way, it is the right one that is presumed to be the higher ego. Still, it is fascinating to see how different somebody can look depending on which eye you are focusing on. You obviously connect with quite different sub-personalities through each of the eyes, and there is definitely more than one sub-personality related to each eye. It is interesting to remember that the word person came to us via the Latin from an Etruscan word, persu, meaning mask. The yes technique. Here is a beautiful and devastating technique. Truly, what is it that prevents you from being a seer? Of course, you have to do the subtle bodybuilding to apply the techniques. However, your organ of subtle vision must be operating already, since from time to time you may have a 1-second flash, a blessed little moment in which you see. And then it is lost, and it sometimes takes months before another such flash takes place. So what? Barriers, mental screens, lazy habits of self-protection of the mental consciousness, thick conditioning like a wall around us. In reality, these are the blocks. The following technique is designed to help you drop the barricades of the mind. It requires that someone sits and practices with you. You can't implement it alone in front of a mirror. Sit in front of each other with your back straight. If you can't touch each other's nose with the palm of your hand, you know you are too far away. Close your eyes and do a reconnection. Implement the throat friction. Build up the vibration in the eye. Then spend 1 or 2 minutes in the purple space. Open your eyes. Implement the triple process of vision, focus in the eye, seeingness, and feeling from the heart, as explained in section 5.13. Try to receive the other one, to take him into your heart. Then one says, yes, and the other, when ready, answers, yes. Both go on saying yes, one after the other. This practice is a heart practice. You can't cheat. If you leave any barrier or restriction, the other will feel it immediately, and the miracle won't happen. You have to say a yes that is really a yes, and put more and more meaning and opening into it. The yes must come from the heart. You have to work at deepening each yes a bit more, until you reach a total acceptance of the other person. And then, go further. Give a yes that is an acceptance of the whole world through the person in front of you. Continue the practice for as long as you want. Then take a good 2 or 3 minutes, covering your closed eyes with the palms of your hands and letting the warmth of the hands reach the heart through the eyes. Tips. You will be surprised to see how many people utter a yes that truly means no. Or they mechanically say yes after yes in a way that simply does not mean anything at all. Put all of yourself into this practice, and after a few minutes, you will hardly be able to utter anything. The word seems to come from far, far away. This can lead to an intense experience of your own truth. There is no limit to how long you should continue this practice, hours if you want. This is the end of chapter 7 of Awakening the Third Eye by Samuel Sagan, MD. Break time equals 2000 milliseconds. Please listen to this recording minimum 3 times for better and long-term results. If you like this recording, Please comment and share it with your friends and loved ones. Stay tuned for listening more books like this. Thank you and good luck.